Hi, everybody. I'm Brittany Lewis, a reporter here at Forbes. Joining me now is my Forbes colleague, staff writer Zach Everson. Zach, thanks so much for coming on.
Thanks for having me on again, Brittany. Appreciate it.
You have some reporting on the profits of Trump's Mar-a-Lago since he left the White House, but I do want to take a step back and start at the beginning here. In your piece, you call the Palm Beach Resort one of his, quote, best real estate investments. How so?
Yeah, it's doing really well. He bought it for about $10 million back in around mid '80s, and we most recently valued it at $325 million. So that's a solid profit margin there.
So, at the beginning, in its inception, was it always a successful property? Or with the moment when Trump entered politics, did it catapult into that semi-household name?
I would use the word middling. It seemed like it was doing okay. It wasn't a money loser. I'm sure he had better businesses out there, but he certainly had worse. One of the things I looked at when reporting this was just how many times it appeared in news articles in a given year. And at first it was, a few hundred, maybe 1,500 or so. And then it certainly exploded to, after he was elected, where it got to be up to 10,000 in a year. And that's according to LexisNexis, which is as high as it showed. So it certainly picked up and it got a lot more attention once he was in office.
I think it's fair to say that Donald Trump was really a polarizing figure once he was in office. And Forbes has previously reported that really impacted his bottom line. Mar-a-Lago was dubbed the Winter White House. Was it doing well during the Trump presidency?
Yeah, yes, it was. It was doing better than it had been before. Calling him divisive is the polite way of putting it. But it did well. It wasn't nearly as well as doing as strong as what we're seeing now, but it was certainly an uptick. We saw revenue. In 2016 was his first year there was $21,000, and that was up 17% from where it was the previous year, which in turn 2015, which in turn was up 17% from the year before that. So he'd had some steady growth there once he rode down that golden escalator and into the presidential campaign.
But you're reporting that post-Trump presidency, profits at Mar-a-Lago have quadrupled since he left the White House. How so?
Yeah, so it went down a little bit towards the end of his presidency due to COVID, although it was still better than it had done beforehand. But then ever since he left office and has been there a sizable amount of the time, it has shot up. In 2021, it was up 45%. The following year, it was 35%. And then 2023 leveled off a little bit. It was up 6%. The revenue that year was about $40 million. So looking at the time frame we started looking at, it was 2011. Revenue there was $15 million. Most recently, in 2023, the last year we have data for, it was 40 million. So a sizable jump right there.
That is a sizable jump. And is that surprising? Because given that most Americans have a strong opinion about him, either one way or the other.
He doesn't need a lot of Americans to like him for this business to succeed. It is capped at 500 members due to a land use agreement he signed with the county back 20, 30 years ago. So all he needs is 500 people who are willing to pay. And clearly that is, demand for those spots has risen. Originally, before he was in the White House, it was $100,000 was the initiation fee. Most recently, it's $700,000. And the manager recently told Bloomberg that in October, it is going to jump to $1 million. Although at this point, they actually just filled up all of their vacancies and they don't have it, so they have a wait list right now. So we've seen that increase tenfold in, 8 years there.
So initiation fees, $100,000 to $700,000, potentially $1 million. Is that the reason this business is doing so much better, or are the events doing as well? Give us some insight there.
It's a lot of things. I mean, for starters, the initiation fees are pure profit. I mean, that is just money that goes straight to the bottom line. So, when he signed up, he had 4 vacancies this year. They all came in at 700,000. That's $2.8 million right there that they got for not doing anything to boost their coffers. So, yeah, that certainly helps. There is a wait list not a wait list, but you need to book an event there about a year out. And now, events aren't open to anybody. You have to have a member invite you to have an event. But somebody who's had events there in the past told me that it's about a year out that you need to book some space there. So that seems to be doing really well. What's interesting is that the money he's getting from political campaigns, while certainly, full of potential conflicts, isn't really doing a ton of business for Mar-a-Lago. At its highest, it only drove about 3% of the revenue in a given year. That said, there are probably other people who are joining Mar-a-Lago or members who keep coming back more often just to see all the politicians who are hanging out there, though.
You mentioned that you had a conversation with someone who hosted an event there. What else did you learn from that conversation, and what is the value of hosting an event at Mar-a-Lago?
So I spoke with Joni Bryan. She is the founder of the 917 Society. That's a group that tries to raise awareness of the Constitution in schools by delivering pocket-sized constitutions. She's had several events there over the past few years, all since Trump left office. Her first one was in 2021. She said, it is more expensive to have events there than where she usually would have them. She's based out in Nashville. But she said the payoff is greater. They can charge more for tickets because Mar-a-Lago is a place you can't really go to every day, and people are interested in going there. And you're also going to get your cause in front of some higher profile people. This did not make it into the piece, but she mentioned to me that at one of the events, there was somebody from Broward County who was on the school committee who was then able to get her organization delivering pocket-sized constitutions to middle schoolers in Broward County. And that was from a connection that was made at Mar-a-Lago.
You mentioned this in your piece, but after January 6th, Donald Trump went to Mar-a-Lago and he was, cast aside. People didn't really know what to make of Donald Trump after that. Then Kevin McCarthy went down there and visited him, and then he was welcomed back into the fold, and we all know how the past 3 years have played out there. But who are some of those other big names visiting the resort?
Well, we've had foreign leaders. You've seen Viktor Orban from Hungary, Netanyahu from Israel. You're seeing Republican politicians going down there regularly. Ted Cruz, Matt Gaetz, or some people have spotted there. And then you're seeing some far-right characters, such as Jack Posobiec, who's one of the online conspiracy slingers who was responsible for spreading the Pizzagate conspiracy. So you're seeing a lot of those types down there. One thing that's different is that you're seeing more people there in the summer than previously. Trump's campaign is based in Palm Beach. It's not up here in DC area again. And he's spending a lot more time there. So while the club is closed for the summer as usual, you are still seeing some people calling on him there, which is, keeping the club in the spotlight a little bit.
So when you're looking at the profits of 2024, how is Mar-a-Lago doing this year?
I think it's going to do pretty well. We've already seen, and again, this is a small part of its revenue, but spending from political groups that are registered with the Federal Election Commission have already spent $1 million there. They've almost equaled their high, and this is only halfway through the year. They're estimating, it's at full capacity in membership. So, as I mentioned earlier, it also has a pretty significant weight if you want to book an event. And looking at social media, there's been an absolutely, steady influx of events that are being held there, weddings, nonprofit events. So I would suspect that we're going to see revenue along the lines of what we saw last year in the $40 million range.
Zach Everson, per usual, thanks for your reporting. I appreciate the conversation.
Per usual, thank you for having me.